What's up, guys? Messenger of the Cross. Just looking at this next video here, it says Clergy Response Teams, okay? And this is a term I wanted you guys to take a look at, check out, look it up. But we're just showing the different angles of how we have a police state, we have communist-style tactics of abuse and control, and all these tactics have been done in world history, and the local 501c3 nonprofit cult called the Church in America is fully merged with the state, and there's a bunch of reasons why that's bad and why it's wrong. And we're going to cover a little bit more in detail about the specifics of that later in this video, but I just wanted to show you guys the reason that you can go to one of these churches. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's a 501c3 nonprofit cult, you're going to have, the Judas pastor, betraying you with a kiss. Just trust me on that. And many people don't understand that in a national security state, the church becomes an extension of the state and an arm to reach into your life and to damage you. So let's take a look at this video really quick, and I'll comment along the way. But this is Clergy Response Teams. Go check out this guy's channel, Online Ministries. I don't know anything really about his channel. I didn't take the time to go there, but definitely this video is very relevant to the targeting and the persecution. And this is just showing one aspect. We can jump from any business and show that they're under the terror laws and prosecuting this war against innocent citizens, because you could be the shadowy enemy and you could be anyone, anywhere, at any time. That's what the fake war on terror was all about. But let's go.
Ever become a reality in America? Some fear any nuclear, biological, or chemical attack on U.S. territory might trigger just that. And as KSLA News 12's Jeff Farrell discovered.
And just really quick, guys, that's how they roll it out. That's how they push it. Crisis, crisis, crisis. And a side order of a manufactured crisis, whether real or fake, we're always being moved in the same direction. Do you get that yet?
The clergy would help the government with potentially their biggest problem, us.
Charlton Heston's famous declaration captures a truly American value, the overarching desire to protect our freedoms. But gun confiscation is exactly what happened during the state of emergency following Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. U.S. troops also arrived, something far easier to do even now, thanks.
And by the way, guys, during this time, they cut the power and went in, not to help the people, but they cut the power lines. And then it was reported on the news that, police officers actually were even getting arrested for, taking TVs when the shops were all closed down and there's no electricity, and it's a free for all, and everybody, I want that big TV, and I'm going to get it. You know what I'm saying? And they were even news reports where police officers were arrested. You got dudes that are unmarked in military gear, but unmarked and everything. And you don't know who they're with. They're just mercenaries that, they deploy to the area probably to get rid of people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what I think, because they're cutting power. And then instead of being concerned with helping people, they deploy the National Guard to the homes that were not affected by any water damage or even in a flood. So this is what they do under a crisis. They make the excuse to go into this neighborhood, and you can see people on the sidewalk, in handcuffs, as they just enter your home with no warrant, because they don't need a warrant under an emergency. It's called crisis management. They suspend your rights and do whatever they want to you.
To last year's elimination of the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act that forbid U.S. troops from policing on American soil. If
not anymore, guys.
Martial law were enacted here at home, like depicted in the movie The Siege, easing public fears and quelling dissent would be critical. And that's exactly what the Clergy Response Team, as it's called, helped accomplish in New Orleans.
Jeff, the primary thing that we say to anybody is let's go out there and get this thing over with, and then we'll settle the differences once the crisis is over.
Do you see this guy? Do you see him? And the psychotic look on his face. Let's go back a little bit. Like, look at his narcissistic, covert, malignant enjoyment and how his eyes are so bright and bushy-tailed, so wide open, because he just can't wait to get his hands on these dirty, real Christians as a Freemason.
Team, as it's called, helped accomplish in New Orleans.
Jeff, the primary thing that we say to anybody is let's go out there and get this thing over with, and then we'll.
There's the look for you guys. He's just, you see the, like, I mean, it's just not normal, that look. Look in his eyes. It's just like he's in a trance. It's probably the W-band network, the smart dust, the signals to the brain and the body. I mean, this guy is rationalizing, and it's all done because they're do-gooders. It's in the name of keeping people safe and saving lives. And they're so narcissistic that they have to placate to their grandiosity at any expense. So to be a hero, to be a savior, and they're like literally delusional children that have gone off the rails, discovering this newfound power to be able to selectively target members of the community with police-backed powers and with really a military style of tactics of engagement against innocent citizens that this guy, he, of course, wants to just compromise and get you to compromise and just go along with it. And we'll sort it out when it's all done. Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
We'll settle the differences once the crisis is over.
Such clergy response teams would walk a tightrope between the needs of the government versus the wishes of the public.
In a lot of cases, these clergy would already be known in the neighborhoods in which they're helping to defuse that situation.
For the clergy, one of the biggest tools that they will have in helping calm the public down or obey the law is the Bible itself, specifically Romans 13.
Because the government is established by the Lord.
Again, this cult leader is mishandling a verse, and, they don't study to show themselves approved. They're too busy golfing all week and going out to lunches and brunches. These are softies. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're not real men. They're not real men. They're the new man, and it's like this very effeminate, no courage, no strength, no ability to stand up on the basis of Jesus. You know what I mean? It's not like they're fellowshipping with Jesus and love Jesus. It's probably the farthest thing from this guy's mind. All he cares about is his newfound power with FEMA and Homeland Security training him who the threats are. And so this is the problem. And these guys like this, they just accept whatever the authority figure says because they are infants. And they never question authority or anything because that's bad. And they've learned how other people get punished for that. So we've got the Judas goat right in front of us right here.
And that's what we believe in the Christian faith. That's what's stated in the scripture.
Civil rights advocates believe the amount of public cooperation may depend largely on how long they expect the suspension of their rights might last. Jeff Farrell, KSLA News 12 reporting.
Did you hear what he said about the suspension of rights? Under any crisis, under any emergency, and this is why they annually declare a crisis or an emergency so that the police state powers and executive orders, which are followed under that crisis, no matter what it is, there's a contingency plan. There is a shadow government that emerges in this police state. The true power and the true control and the true nature of what they've done to America is revealed through things like this. And we can see that it's all about them training the pastors to betray members of the community because it's all about the profiling and training that these pastors get from Homeland Security.
According to Tuberville, during Hurricane Katrina, the clergy response team provided 38 chaplains a day around the clock at 8 different camps.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon rise? Without objection.
Most Americans would agree that it would be prudent to have a plan to provide for the continuity of government and the rule of law in case of a devastating terrorist attack or natural disaster. A plan that provides for the cooperation, the coordination, and continued functioning of all three branches of the government. The Bush administration tells us they have such a plan. They introduced a little sketchy public.
Yeah, but they declared martial law during the Cuban Missile Crisis and those hearings that were done, and nobody can look into the contingency plan and what that really is, which is basically the militarization of our society. Okay, the hardening and the radicalizing and the militarizing of your local sheriff's office and tactics of engagement, figuring out new ways to get involved in your life. You can't remain passive with this kind of dynamic. You can't remain neutral. You are forced to either be for us, or what did Bush say? You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. I mean, just dividing the country right down the line and really showing, what kind of country we're really living in.
Public version that's clearly inadequate and doesn't really tell us what they have in mind. But they said, don't worry, there's a detailed classified version. But now they've denied the entire Homeland Security Committee of the United States House of Representatives access to their so-called detailed plan to provide for continuity of government. They say, trust us. Trust us, the people who brought us Katrina, to be competent in face of a disaster.
And also, he doesn't know this probably, or he does and just doesn't want to say it. But yeah, the people that brought us Katrina, they can control the storms. They use Next Rad radar or whatever. They have a lot of different platforms and systems, and they use the heavy metals that they spray that are suspended in the clouds in the atmosphere, and these fake clouds that they use. And they use electromagnetic waves, scalar waves, to steer the storms, to radicalize the storms, to make them worse, to direct them, to send them at different countries. Like, this is the fourth generational warfare that we're dealing with. And so they just destroy an area deliberately and intentionally, and then that gives them the excuse to, run their forced relocation plan of the restructuring of the United States while we're living here.
Trust us, the people who brought us warrantless wiretapping and other excesses eroding our civil liberties. Trust us. Maybe the plan just really doesn't exist, and that's why they won't show it to us. I don't know. Or maybe there's something there that's outrageous. The American people need their elected representatives to review this plan.
Again, more Hegelian dialectic. There is no true elected representatives. We are, realizing that under the suspension of rights due to the crises that they declare, and even formally every year, that it allows them, in the name of keeping you safe and saving lives, it allows them to take the moral high ground, to get away with abusing us.
For the continuity of government.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster?
The continuity of government is the shadow government. It's the real government. It's the police state. It's the national security state. It is the technology companies working together with the government to track, trace, database, and hunt.
Mr. Chairman.
I believe the question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area. So may I request that you not touch upon that, sir?
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution, and I was deeply concerned about it.
And that's what they did, and that's what they're even doing now, because the congressman is asking him a question about this contingency plan, the militarization and shadow government that is under an emergency and scalable and deployable and is here operating domestically every day of our lives, basically. So he's basically seeing and experiencing the martial law because he's a congressman, but not allowed to look into it. So national security, you don't get to look into it. Much like many of us who are targeted individuals, there can't be an investigation done because if you try to go to the police, they just turn it around on you because they know that people are going to complain about the abuses they're doing. So they've got something in place for you when you start to complain.
I wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that he was.
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage. If we wish to get into this, I'm certain arrangements can be made for an executive session.
And tragically,
he's basically showing the congressman all rights are suspended during the time of this hearing because of what he's declaring.
The only member who got close was Jack Brooks, and he was stopped by the chairman. But the truth of the matter is that, yes, you do have those standby provisions, and the plans are there, and the statutory emergency plans are there, whereby you could, in the name of stopping terrorism, apprehend, invoke the military, and arrest Americans.
And this is what happens with the JIFCO and their Intermediate Force Capabilities Office. Intermediate force means they're engaging you, but with asymmetrical means. It's not direct warfare with dudes in military fatigues. They don't make themselves known. They don't make themselves obvious. And they hide within society in regular clothes, but are very coordinated and organized and very involved in behavior modification and torture of United States citizens that have been profiled. And like this man is saying, I don't know who this guy is, but like this guy on the screen is saying, it is what they do. They suspend rights by labeling you, and then the torture begins.
And hold him in detention camps. In times of passion and in times of great fear, what to the eyes of the person and the mind of a person in time of relative peace and stability seem impossible, become very real, very logical, very possible.
That is why they manufacture the crisis one after the next, one after the next. They're real crises, but they're manufactured. They're done intentionally to you.
March of this year, I was invited to attend a meeting, a local meeting of the.
Now, this guy is a total shill on the page here. Alex Jones. I mean, the guy is just completely off his rocker when it comes to the truth and when it comes to, exposing the truth. This guy is just participating in the Hegelian dialectic, and this is the way all these gatekeepers and plants and informants are, because they're so heavily in the media. The CIA is working domestically in the media. And this guy is just a CIA agent. And he's a provocateur to stir up the chaos, because that gives them the excuse to crack down and have a police state. They always have the same program, guys, in history.
Emergency Management Agency, that we call the local FEMA people, was invited to come because I'd done disaster relief work with another church denominational group years ago, and I wanted to see what was going on. They were planning for any kind of bioterrorism, they said, so I wanted to find out what it was, it being FEMA.
Does it make you wonder that under the emergency and health scare of 2020, that communism was the solution to any problem, to every problem, even a health crisis problem? Go figure.
It was wonderful stuff when they started out, but it immediately turned into this is for a natural disaster, a tornado, flood, or any act of bioterrorism, or a nationally declared emergency. And so I lit up to that one, and the spokesperson there was from the state FEMA office, who also was the trainer for pastors in their training program for pastors. He said, your job, pastors, is to get to your congregations and preach to them Romans 13. And that's the part that says you obey the higher powers. And he was saying you have to teach them to obey their governments.
By the way, Hitler did that. He had a cohort of preachers that preached Romans 13 out of context.
Yes, he did. And this is what he wanted us to do. And so he's telling us that. He's telling us, and the thing that really got us started on this, and when I started contacting people, is when he said the problem with local enforcement of a federal or state mandate that is quarantine or relocation, and these are the terms he used, or a declaration of martial law based on whatever disaster.
Those terms, by the way, we got to get familiar with. Quarantine, and you've heard it before during 2020. You're not essential, quarantine. All this is authoritarianism. It is a dictatorship, a technological dictatorship at that.
It might be.
He said martial law. Let's be clear.
Yes, he did. And he said if it goes the distance, the problem is all along the way is this so-called cowboy mentality. And you pastors are going to have to learn to quell that cowboy mentality. And so I asked him what he meant. He said,
that just means being independent and thinking on your own.
You know, the individualistic effort that stands up and said, this is my property, you'll pry guns from my cold dead hand kind of thing. And everybody laughed. There were only about 6 people there. And he said, we're talking about law enforcement. That's a law enforcement issue. We're talking about you pastors going there because you know the people, you all are trusted, and you'll be preaching this ahead of time. You can stand in the neighborhoods and tell people this is for their own good.
Again, you see the propaganda, you see the brainwashing, you see why the churches are corrupt in America, all of them, basically. Almost all of them, because of the amount of control. You think they let movements just grow on their own and get big on their own? They're always infiltrated. We can go through a whole show, a whole history on that, just that alone, okay, about the CIA infiltrating different religious groups and creating them and, raising up, guru cult leaders. Do you understand?
This is deadly real. And that was our first meeting. The second meeting pretty much carried it through with our responsibility as pastors is to have training. And this man, who is a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, he's also on a national organization for disaster relief. He's also working with DHS and FEMA. He's on their payroll. We just found this out last week. He said that your pastor's jobs are going to be to deal with the individuals, not just in counseling, but you're going to have to control some folks who may not be so cooperative. He said, but that's going to be a law enforcement issue. You'll be backed by that. And he said, besides, pastors aren't trained to handle everything.
You guys see how there's a whole structure in place, a whole organized, well thought out, pre-scripted thing going on in our society. And every business, every organization, and especially the churches, have been co-opted and merged with the federal government, and this is what they're doing. They are using the churches as a way to shape the community and the behavior, but for the propaganda, for the obedience that is demanded to dear leader. Do you understand what I'm saying? Dear leader can be the only God in our hearts, right? The dear leader, not God, not our faith, but that's an offense to them. So we become enemies when we don't agree.
The picture that me and others who are aware of this, that we're going to be standing at some farmer's end of his lane while he's standing there with his double barrel wherever he's got, telling him to lay the arms down. They have to confiscate your cows, your chickens,
and he's got to be relocated to a camp. Now, for those that don't know.
And it is very true about relocation to a labor camp. That's what the modern day prisons are, basically, is cheap, forced labor, kind of like a sweatshop. Do you understand?
Right here in Austin, we've confirmed some of the biggest churches are now FEMA officers secretly. The church, and little do you know.
And, Alex Jones is a total liar, but back in the day when he was talking about this, and doing this interview, he was speaking some of the truth. And that's the danger with these people that are like Alex Jones, like just, it's all about kind of like what they do with Disney, and these young singers come up through the Disney club, the Mickey Mouse club. And then next thing they, lead all these people into thinking like, this is a Christian or this person is moral or whatever it might be. And then the switcheroo always comes up and the alter ego or the demon always comes forth. That's why all these celebrities I'll talk about, like even Eminem, Slim Shady, that's his demon in him that he, apprehended during the rituals and during the selling of his soul. And I don't even believe you can sell your soul because it belongs to God. But the enemy is the father of lies and will deceive people into thinking that they could never come back from that and could never get delivered from that, which is another lie of the enemy.
This guy is an actual servant of the Antichrist beast system.
And this is what's so frightening. It started out, he made it sound like it was a local thing that we were doing, and we're the pioneers, we're the first one.
They always say that.
They always say that, and I knew it was coming. Just last week, there was training for pastors, which we'll get into it.
What wickedness will not these pastors do for the greater good? What dark wickedness will you pastors do for the greater good, man?
At some point, I haven't faxed you the training manual. The training manual pretty much keeps pastors down by telling us we cannot handle all these mental health issues.
Now,
we were told then.
Part of the training manual is the IRS edicts and rules and regulations to remain nonprofit status. And of course, the pastors just are all too open, to the compromise. They don't have a real relationship with Jesus. It's just, the appearances of a relationship to deceive many.
That we can't handle everything, so there'll be the professionals there helping us out. But we were told we would have to take mental health training. And to make it palatable to the other pastors, and these are their words now, that we won't call it mental health, we'll call it spiritual care. And so they've renamed everything instead of mental health and disaster.
Again, when warfare is being committed against you, one of the ways that they do it, the psychological warfare at least, is change terms and meanings and always keep shifting the definitions of what those words and terms actually represent. So, for example, terrorism, when it first started, right, the war on terror, they were talking about some guy in a cave, okay? And we had to do all these things and give up our freedoms because we had to go after some guy in a cave that didn't like our freedoms. And that's what we were told. And so it was this whole keeping you safe and saving lives and using the Hegelian dialectic of fake scripted clashes and crisis to drive us into their arms, to plead with them to be our savior. We'd be willing to give up anything since 9/11, right? And that's why it was done. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's a whole other topic. But again, they create these crises because there's a goal with all the crises.
Relief, it's spiritual care.
We're covering a national program of the Federal Emergency Management Agency to turn leading pastors, priests, rabbis, you name it, into secret police enforcers.
Even this deceiver, basically, that is fake and totally co-opted, is actually telling the truth right here. And this is the problem today, is gaining the discernment to cherry pick the truth out of someone that, has so much duality. It's the intermittent reinforcement that becomes the mind control. They take one stance one day and then the polar opposite stance the next day, and you can't have two polar opposites equal the same thing. So they know that, and they are trying to create cognitive dissonance through the psychological attacks and schemes and methods that they're using on us.
Gun confiscation, martial law. Remember, in my film Road to Tyranny, I haven't asked the pastor if he's seen this, we have FEMA in Kansas City months before 9/11 saying the founding fathers are terrorists, all Christians are terrorists, and basically how we're the enemy and have to die.
Yeah, I've seen that. The MIAC report, it's a federal training manual. Look up MIAC, all capital, MIAC report, which was a federal training manual in 2012 to the local sheriff's office, saying pretty much the same thing. And FEMA and Homeland Security train that freedom is terror, war is peace, and your rights. If you have anybody that thinks they have rights, well, that makes you suspicious and a suspect. This is the way they roll all through world history, guys. We got to start getting aware, start getting smart. And, I'm just going to keep playing this.
So this is bone chilling. This is the martial law arm. That's always been FEMA's job since 1979. Now they're really beefing up to do it. They have urban warfare training drills for conditioning for martial law, which their own documents admit. They always tell the town, you're the first, you're special.
Oh, exactly.
As they told you, and then they tell you a few months in, oh, by the way, it's 13,000.
Yeah, that's basically because we have a society of narcissist children that haven't developed and haven't matured and haven't grown mentally or emotionally because of the trauma-based mind control that's over us since we're in kindergarten.
1,000 counties.
Right. They mentioned that one of the reasons that they're really pushing pastors to get on board is that we can help recruit other people for Citizen Corps. And Citizen Corps will be the guys who are going around checking doors, kind of thing.
Citizen Corps, InfraGard, there's so many different groups that they use to target citizens, and the same people that are perping you and targeting you are also the same people that have been nominated and stand in total pure delusional grandiosity thinking they're heroes and saviors because they're so easily manipulated. They're do-gooders. They don't ever think or question and say, is this guy innocent? Like, I don't know. I'm just being told this stuff. And they're asking me to do all this abusive stuff to this guy. You know what I mean? They don't do that.
And they said the benefits of being in Citizen Corps for pastors and also locals is this, that will put you on a higher list for antivirals or vaccination. In other words, if you...
Oh, yeah, give them that solution, right? I mean, and see how they get people to beg for their own destruction and even desire their own destruction. Evil is good, good is evil, light is dark, dark is light, and bitter is sweet, and sweet is bitter. That is the inversion, the satanic New World Order, little season of Satan mentality.
You volunteer, you get vaccinated and get your pills first, and so does your family. You don't volunteer, you don't get the drugs.
And more than that, you'll get the food shipments during an emergency if you've got the little I'm a Minion badge.
They talked about these centers. They're not calling them relocation. 3 months ago, it was relocation quarantine centers, and now it's community aid centers. And these are going to be activated at the local...
You see the language? Community aid centers makes it sound, it hides the true nature of it. It makes it sound like it's something to help the community when really it's just a labor camp where they work you to death because you don't have a home anymore because the hurricane came at your home, and they just migrate you to a FEMA camp. And then eventually, you have to obey and take the shots and do all these things. It's all about breaking you down, controlling you, dominating you, taking away your choice, guys. It's about taking away your choice.
Local schools, and they said this is where the Citizen Corps volunteers will be.
And that's why they're putting fences up around schools, making them mini prisons with cameras, doors that automatically lock down with wire mesh in the windows. These are prisons.
Right, and where we are, they have the roads circuited off that in the event of some kind of quarantine.
I don't know how anybody could disagree that the school system is a prison. There's plenty of things this liar says to bait and to gatekeep and everything else, but he is speaking the truth when he says that.
Some relocation, they know what roads to siphon off. One of the more frightening things is that they're passing this off as for the common good. It's the typical garbage drivel that you heard all these years, but they're so bold about it. And now when they're bringing pastors in, there's so many pastors who are so desperate for church growth at any cost that they're jumping on the bandwagon here. They want...
Sounds like a narcissist. At any cost, at any price. The ambition of a narcissist is disgusting, and may God rebuke them. May God correct them. May God oppose them. May God get in their way. May God confound them. May God throw a wrench in their plans. May God make them to stumble and fall because they are set in slippery places for doing what they've done to God's people and to innocents.
Want their name out front in this. They want their church name out front.
Well, I want to add that when the economy implodes by design, many people will be forced to take jobs with a paltry payment. Instead of make-works like Roosevelt had building dams, the make-work is going to be little armed security guards.
Yes, the name.
Slave labor at gunpoint in a labor camp. I mean, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm just saying that you see all the other marks of communism. You see what's being imposed. And you see the police state, you see the national security state, you see the abuses, you see the surveillance, you see them making choices to kick people off of their land and put in a data center, and they didn't ask anybody. And I'm not saying the data centers are even something that needs to be focused on as much. I'm just saying that they have no regard for human life and the regular civilian population. We're experimented on, we are used, abused, and thrown to the side and replaced.
Of those pastors who signed up, made the pledge, so that would really help us out. But that's my advantage. But I think it'd be a great idea to put something together so people can confront their pastors. They should know already how they feel about it, but sometimes these things sneak in on people. But these guys are signing up.
Pastor, I have friends who attend big Baptist churches in Austin, two big ones, and they 3 years ago, one of them brought me a document. and it said, during the upcoming election, this was like in early 2004, this was about 2 years ago, do not talk about politics at lunch. Do not talk about politics with anyone in.
Yeah, so that's the IRS code that he's quoting that the churches have to obey. So that's some of the 30 points that can be found in the IRS documentation that classifies these churches and, creates the criteria of obedience in order to get their federal subsidy donation money from the federal government and to be well taken care of.
Sunday school or anywhere in the church. It is not proper. And then now they're being told that the preachers are getting up and saying, we must submit to the government. Bad things are coming. They know best. New Orleans was good. I mean, this is really going on.
Yeah, well, these people need to get out of those churches.
The pastors led the Revolutionary War against the Redcoats. Now they're going to lead with the...
And we know that all history is a lie. So any kind of thing that he's talking about here that has to do with the Redcoats and history, we have been only lied to. You don't continue to believe someone that you've proven to be a liar in such flagrant degrees. You don't keep accepting what they say to you, do you? You got to see it with your own eyes. And if you don't see it with your own eyes and it's not a part of your daily experience and you don't really see it, I just throw all that stuff out the window.
Destruction of America.
Well, I think the people have failed to know our history. Those in power know it all too well, and they know who to subvert, they know who to co-opt, and they go after the pastors. I mean,
this is a social engineering, social hygiene program that's been done in world history again and again and again. It's really a depopulation agenda in the end, and they are cutting us off from all resources, and they want to be our heroes and saviors and force us to take their solutions. Okay, you wouldn't ever take their solutions of self-harm and self-devaluation, which is what they want you to do to yourself. So you'd never accept that without the crisis.
What better group of people to get in there and get them to change?
Under the faith-based initiative, $10 billion a year to start to pay off churches.
Oh, yeah.
How much are they promising money down the road during an emergency?
No, they haven't even mentioned anything like that. But I'll tell you now, there are several guys who are involved who are already getting money from the faith-based thing. And I mean, as far as getting the outward money.
Remember what I said, guys, faith-based initiative, look it up, read it, and investigate. I mean, when these truths came to me, I had a choice. And most people don't look into things. They just overlook it. Oh, yeah, or they want to listen to some guru tell them everything because it's this idolatry and this worship of authority and bootlicking. That's not what God wants, okay? I mean, shall we obey God or man? You know what I'm saying? It comes down to that at the most fundamental level, especially when you're being asked to do immoral, ugly, and toxic things to members of your community just because you've been told that that person is a danger or a threat. And meanwhile, you just trust the experts because you worship them and you never look into things, and you're used like a weapon against your own family. You're used like a weapon against the people in your community, and many people that don't deserve to suffer these things, like the gang stalking and the tactics of following you, harassing you, pressuring you, trying to get a breakdown to get that bad reaction. And they're all coordinated in it under the clergy response teams. Those are the perps for the churches, okay?
That, they've been turned on to grants by our government and said, look, this way you can get your grants for this program.
Can we get into the loyalty oath required? I have an article here out of loyalty oath required of Illinois FEMA volunteers. They're now getting students, politicians, pastors. Can you get into the loyalty oath?
Like I said, guys, anybody can look up this information on their own. So I never just listen to what people say. I always look up what they're talking about and try to scour the internet for, factual information. You got to know how to be a researcher and a fair researcher, so let's keep going.
That you were given.
Same loyalty oath, and a lot of us rebelled against that one. A lot of us being those who just heard about it, didn't think it was a good idea. But what they've said is you don't have to make the pledge. All you got to do is make an affirmation. And everybody was happy. I'm not kidding. And the pledge, basically, if you've got a copy of it.
But that's what Hitler did. They just lined.
All of this is about consent. And if you don't consent, then you're an enemy combatant, a terrorist. and it doesn't matter whatever the edict is. And again, we remember the health crisis where, if you didn't go along with it, you were punished. You were cut off from your job that you were at like for 20 years. Okay. You were kicked out of where you live. Family and friends got rid of you because they were deathly afraid of, them contracting some or contacting something. You know what I'm saying? It's just they know what they're doing in the brainwashing and the programming and the manipulation, are very sophisticated at it. And it's like the only thing they do. And we are in big time trouble because we, as a majority, when I look around, most are asleep and have no idea that the United States has been hijacked. And that's why we're seeing all these things take place in our country.
Them up and said, raise your right hand.
Sure, just raise your right hand. You can say affirm, you can say pledge, you can say I agree. Anything you want to say that makes you happy. Because some Christians know they shouldn't be taking oaths. Well, they go against the oath and call it something else. It's a pledge. It's an honoring of the oath.
It's all lawyer word games. Again, they call the Patriot Act the Patriot Act. They call drugging half the kids New Freedom. It's ridiculous.
Sure.
And that's exactly right. The way this propaganda is run and the inversion of reality. So he's very correct when he says it's a word game. Like I said, it's a battle over the terms and definitions and meaning of words. And that's why they with the UAP thing and UFO, they keep changing it so that they can be in control of the information. Do you see what I'm saying?
This loyalty oath basically says that while you're on duty with, under FEMA protection, that we get workers' comp through that. So if we're injured in disaster relief or someone shoots us because we're trying to get in their farm, that we're covered, and that we promise not to overthrow the government or actively participate while we're on the payroll.
And they know that people are going to be upset with them forcing their way on us. I mean, it's common sense. Forcing their agenda and plan and weigh on us. And part of that is the devaluation that's happening every day, not only to our money, but to everything, because they're putting the pedal to the metal. And we are at the end of the cycle of this debt-based economy. They've printed as much money as they can possibly print and have ruined the buying power of the dollar deliberately in economic warfare to bring us under this hell nation. And remember, the nations that forget God shall be turned to hell.
Which is basically the payroll is workers' comp. Now, the problem with that, of course, you can see as far as language, you're not supposed to be with any group that advocates the overthrow of the government while you're on that time. So pastors who go there, and if they happen to be like myself, but I'm not going to serve with them, but who happen to have some allegiances that would be contrary to what they see, that can be classified as a terrorist group. And Christians already are classified as terrorists.
Notice at first it's, hey, come on in, it's for hurricanes. Then, oh, it's for bird flu. And then by a month into it, oh, it's for people that want to fight us or overthrow us. It's what is the government planning that they know there's going to be mass physical revolts?
It's like Y2K. Everybody was happy when nothing happened.
I don't know. Could it be the torture of innocent American citizens? Could it be the neurological weapons systems that are in place? Could it be the broadcast system that's in place? Could it be the weaponization of electromagnetic spectrums, and deploying weapon systems and surveillance tools where that's the only economy as they crash everything is just a police state as the only economy? And believe me, they're setting us up to feed on us. That's why they make being homeless illegal. They're pigeonholing us. And you call that keeping people safe and saving lives. Backing people into a corner is an attempt to radicalize society.
Happened, but actually something did happen. The government got just what they wanted. Everybody's online, everybody's networked, everybody's being watched. Well, they're going to do the same thing with this if they don't take it the next step. They'll be happy with 70 to 80% of what they want now.
And get more into that, how who's knocking on doors, what's going on?
What's happening is the neighbors complain against neighbors, and they...
Absolutely not. Pastors do not have this information. And it's not because they don't have the information, it's because they are willfully ignorant and don't want to acknowledge the horror of their cowardly, scheming behavior.
And then they call the local sheriff, or they call the health department, or or they call some other agency, and they're knocking on doors already, and people are already of the mindset accepting that kind of authority and that kind of law enforcement. So what I'm saying is, when it comes down to a real disaster, that's who they're going to turn to. They're already being told, don't handle things yourself, get rid of the neighborhood quality.
Well, this is all just drilling us for martial law.
Yeah, they've heard the battle cry. That's why many of us were grabbed by the arm and thrown out of these churches, trying to get people to wake up and understand what really was going down. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, I'm sure you're quite aware that they have a policy called, a program called peer-to-peer, and that was under FEMA, it was under DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and now it's been turned over to this national volunteer organization in disaster relief, where they train neighbors.
And many of them don't even get paid. They're just that cowardly and that insecure that, they do anything to be recognized.
Or they train a family or a home in one neighborhood to pretty much oversee the neighborhood, and that's called peer-to-peer. And what they're doing is they're training more or less brown shirts to sit in a neighborhood. If something goes wrong, they're to go and talk to the neighbors. They're like the neighborhood watch groups.
Prima Kopp, the former head of the KGB, was hired by Homeland Security before it even got funding. At the same,
I love this verse in the background, guys. This is such a powerful verse, because Jesus is breaking it down for these wamby-bamby pastors that are wet behind the ears and infantile. So basically, the hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. These hirelings, right, on the pulpit today in America that gatekeep the real people of God. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. That is what these pastors are like. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. How many times have I seen that?
Same time, Marcus Wolf, the former head of the Stasi, was hired for consulting. This isn't a joke. This is really happening.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is happening, and it's not being hidden. It's not being hidden anymore. This makes the front page of our paper here. People can stop guns from coming to their front door, but the flu, they have a problem with that. They
well,
can't.
Pastor, a lot of people call it the sixth sense. I call it discernment.
Yes, sir.
And this is, the globalists play a trick, and I want to see if you sound like a very intelligent man, probably smarter than I am, so you can, people deep down know something's wrong. They know we're in great danger. The government, psychological warfare experts know that we know something's wrong, and the problem is them, the globalists. And so they put out these fake things, which deep down we know are fake, these fake crises, but we know something real is scary going on, and they misdirect our energies that are really aware of them into something else. So I think a lot of the fear is people know something's wrong, and it's the government.
It's not like Alex Jones has ever done that. I mean, give me a break, dude.
So the government misdirects it onto their neighbors and other people.
And that puts the government in charge. You're right. This is what the government does. This is the powers that be. They can't enforce their authority, but they sure can win the hearts and minds of people by putting a fear into them.
They have deadlines, and then those come and go, and then there's the next goal, the next goal. So a lot of times it doesn't mean that the deadline of August whatever means that's when it's going to happen. That means that that's the deadline for part one of the program. Then they'll just keep expanding it.
Keep pushing for
more.
more.
I predict phase 2 will be identifying terrorists.
Exactly.
And they'll give you, oh, they told you that?
Exactly right.
Profile policing, identifying threats, and they change the definition of what that means to be a threat so that it becomes lawful, normal, law-abiding behavior, selective enforcement, profile policing. Get rid of the rules of engagement and have many different excuses and reasons to directly engage this innocent American citizen. And you don't have to break any laws. You don't have to commit any crimes. And you will be punished and tortured in an attempt to keep things safe and save lives. And they just roll forward with it. And everybody that is the do-gooder is the enabler of these abusive systems. And people support it because they're cowardly.
Right, because they're looking at, we're having a second part of the training in June, and that's where we deal with crowd control kind of issues. That's my term. Their term is unruly people who won't follow directions. with crowd control, and that's where they're going to talk about suspected bioterrorism.
British government released foot and mouth. That's admitted. Back of the paper, but it's admitted. So.
The Tuskegee experiments done deliberately without the awareness of others, without the awareness of the people that were being experimented on, the radiation experiments, and the list goes on and on and on.
Sure, and that's something that they were really hot on was foot-and-mouth disease, and saying that breaks out here. He said, you're going to see a quarantine like nobody's seen a quarantine.
Well, they use that to get states to pass martial law provisions. Then it's SARS.
These are frothing demons that rub their hands together and get all excited and titillated, basically, when they can hurt and damage innocents. This is the nature of the mind of the people that are persecuting us.
Then it's smallpox. Then it's bird flu. It's always some new crises until they really do it.
Right, and he has referred to the trainer has referred to the fact that things are already that laws are already in effect now. That it would just take a call from the local FEMA director, the FEMA director, to get things started.
That's page 76 of Homeland Security. Serving evil is always very destructive, especially to those that are active in it. What some of the other pastors you talk to, are some of them waking up, or are they all just got the spirit of the devil in them? Are they deceived going along with this? But anything else you want to add?
Briefly, just some of the things that they tell pastors, and for pastors who are called to preach the Word of God, we're being told that in a time of crisis that we just can't use the Bible. And these pastors are just sucking this up, and they're telling us that...
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that, because the Bible has been spiritually attacked and under attack for many years, not only with, the Westcott and Hort and the Ghostly Guild Club and the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, those manuscripts that underline all the other versions of the Bible besides the KJV, but then furthermore, we're seeing supernatural attacks on the scriptures, and I don't have time to get into that right now, but that's a whole other topic that, you just go down the line and you can clearly see what I'm talking about if you are familiar with the Bible.
If you're going to use the Bible, just set it down next to you. Don't really quote from it. This is not a time to bring Jesus into the situation.
Because they're getting you ready.
Yeah.
They're getting you ready to be total federal employees, and these at the top, these are demonic individuals, and they know that name will probably screw up what they're doing.
Absolutely right. And what frightens me is to see these people, these pastors, sit there and take this and take the training and nod their heads.
And they're telling you, don't bring the Bible into it.
Yeah, and they're just having a good time with it. So that's one of the points I want to bring up. There's several.
They are sporting themselves in their own deceivings and rejoicing.
Things you'll get on the facts, which you're handling in the next 5 minutes, but it'll get there. Several comments I've written down from the instructors, several things they say on the training that pretty much speaks to that same issue. I've not taken the opportunity to go out and question pastors yet because I'm still getting information. I want to go to the meetings as long as I can before I tip my hand. It still is only May, but we're looking at June they're having a disaster drill in June.
And these drills are part of the brainwashing, because you don't know if it's a real thing or just a drill, and the media will come out and even though they're drilling for these emergency fake crises and practicing all the time, that's why you see, SWAT teams come into the school and, all these different phenomenons that we've been seeing, and there's tons of mind control going on and tons of engagements that are taking place with innocent citizens who are being tortured. We are being tortured, and we are being harassed, and we are being interrupted from continuing to go on having our own resources, having our own autonomy and independence, having our own freedom to decide what's good and what's not good. But they want to take that away from you and are very arrogant about it because they think that they're the ones that get to rule and reign over you. And they've just nominated themselves in their delusional grandiosity, pretending to be heroes and saviors at any cost.
Here with all this stuff in place. So I want to see how that goes.
And these drills are meant, and they happen in every town, every city, to raise the hysteria level as real, because the subconscious mind sees these drills as real.
Yeah.
And I've been to them. They'll splatter fake blood on the children. At some of them, they have men with machine guns screaming, "I'm a homeschooler, I'm a Christian, I'm going to kill you." The children cry, children as young as...
Yeah, and it's all done to train people to think, the things that separate us from going along with this are terrible. It's the homeschooler that's the terrorist. Do you see what I'm saying, guys, how they do this?
8 years of age. This is Soviet brainwashing.
We have about 78 pastors here in the area. 44 responded favorably, 23 went through the training, and 19 raised their right hand. So that's where it is.
So we're looking at about 25%.
Right, and that's a large amount because these people represent churches that are, family-based, home-based churches. So.
All right, guys, FEMA pastors, clergy response teams, Homeland Security, operating here domestically with the CIA and the threat fusion centers right in your local churches. And really, they use the churches to target all of us, really, in the community. There are snitches, rats, and backstabbing, very dangerous, insecure little ninny men that are on the pulpits in America. And they don't want to talk about this. All they want to do is try to discredit it or discount it and pretend like we who are exposing it are the problem and crazy and just can't see clearly, which is nothing new to me because that's what abusers always do. So God bless, guys. Take care.